Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video, and this is the big weekend. This is the first official raid test, and as promised, there was a lot more class tuning moving into this weekend. What specializations are going to be climbing to the top of the DPS charts, going to be looking like high contenders for Race to World first, and also what are the implications of these changes potentially on the rest of the game, Mythic Plus and PvP. All those answers are going to be displayed for you in today's video, and if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with everything related to World of Warcraft as well as entertaining videos, then do make sure you hit the subscribe button, as I'm doing my best to be an excellent resource for this area of content and working diligently to my long-term goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers, and your support would be greatly appreciated along this journey. So first, right off the bat, Boomkin got hit. They kind of undid the most recent hit, but it's still a hit from where it was before, with Wrath getting a 6% nerf, Friends of the Fae talent getting a 2% nerf, and the Power of Goldrin getting nerfed in half. But do note that they also made Power of Goldrin work with your mastery in a recent change, so I'm not sure if this is actually a nerf or just an equalization of the damage overall, and we should expect the same. Star Surge also received a significant nerf, over 20% here, so Boomkin's not too happy about this, although from a few of the Race to World First guilds that I was looking at on Twitch before they're going into their testing this weekend, looked like they were still sticking to their balance druids, and they weren't really worried about having to get benched or not. So even despite this, possibly still going to be in a decently competitive position. In PvP, these are huge nerfs, and I'm really upset about it, and I'm really worried about it, because when I recently tested Boomkin and made my Should You Main video, it felt really fun and awesome, so I'm not sure if it's going to feel so fun and awesome. Mind you, I did feel that way from the other nerfs before, and it was still fun, so I'll have to jump into it again. But Balanced Druid's going to be a little bit upset. Mistweaver Monk, surprisingly receiving some nerfs as well. Your Enveloping Mist getting reduced significantly. Your Essence Font getting reduced by a minor amount. Your Refreshing Jade Wind actually getting buffed. So the Tornado from Refreshing Jade Wind going to be getting a small buff and lasting a much longer duration. So maybe just trying to increase value towards this spell. Renewing Mist also getting a minor nerf. Rising Mist, minor nerf. Zen Pulse once again getting buffed, because I don't know how many times they're going to have to buff this thing for people to actually select it, but I'm assuming they really want Zen Pulse to be picked here on the talent tree for you guys, because this thing gets buffed every single time I look at changes for Mistweaver. For Ret Paladin, you are getting very, very honky-tonk nerfs. Your Sanctified Wrath is getting like a 50% nerf here, down to 13.5% attack power. Your Divine Storm getting almost a 10% nerf once again. And your Radiant Decree, which is kind of your big slash with Wake of Ashes, looks like it's getting a 25% attack power reduction. Your Sanctified Wrath, again, I don't know if this is just the same nerf as this one up here. It probably is, but a 50% reduction during Avenging Wrath seems to be like the biggest deal here. Judgment is getting a minor buff. Actually, no, it's a nerf. Oh my goodness, you're just getting nerfs all around. Ret Pals, what have you guys been doing in PvE on the Dragonflight beta to get so many nerfs, man? What's going on? What's going on? Like, I mean, I feel like Ret is almost never like a Mythic Plus spec competitively. Very rarely in raid maybe, and like, man, you Rets, you guys are down bad right now. For rogues, I saw a lot of rogues on Twitter upset about the buffs towards assassination here, because they didn't want to have to play assassination. So I'm curious if these buffs are that serious. And Venom getting a pretty massive buff here from 16 to 22%. Your Fan of Knives is also getting almost a 10% buff. Your Garrote is getting almost a 30% buff. Your Mutilate is getting almost 4% buff. Rupture, 4% buff. Amplifying Poison getting about a little tiny buff. Bloody Mess, which is Garrote and Rupture damage, increased by 15 up to 30% at rank 2. You're getting insane buffs. Crimson Tempest getting doubled in value to 12%. Deadly Poison getting a minor buff. King's Bane getting a 15% buff, roughly about overall. Poison Bomb getting a slight nerf. Sepsis getting a significant buff, about 50% more damage onto that. Serrated Bone Spike as well, getting a significant buff. Venom Rush getting a buff up to 7 energy when Ambush and Mutilate are used. So it's curious, as Venom Rush used to, I think, be dot ticks on a poison target to give you energy. It was way better when it was like that than Mutilate. So I'm wondering if this will be enough to make this any good. Venomous Wounds, you regain 6 energy each time you Garrote or Rupture deals bleed damage to a poison. Oh, they actually are bringing that back. It's literally the next thing, and it's getting buffed. So yeah, Assassination Rogue looking really good, possibly going into this weekend. Is it going to be enough to contend with Outlaw or Subtlety, though? Now with Subtlety also getting a slight buff to their backstab. We like that for PvP. Shadow Strike getting a slight buff as well. Shuriken Storm getting a slight buff. Black Powder getting a minor buff by 0.8%. Deepening Shadows, your finishing moves reduce the remaining cooldown of your Shadow Dance by 6% down from 10. That's a pretty big deal, at least when it comes to PvP, and I would imagine for PvE as well, as Shadow Dance is kind of your main moment to pop off and do a lot of damage. It was a pretty significant nerf. Finality is now going to last significantly longer, so you can hold on to that extra bonus damage to your finishing move for 30 seconds up from 12. Might help you going like pull to pull or something like that. Or maybe even mob to mob without having to lose your buff. Gloom Blade punctures your target, getting buffed by about 7%. Secret Technique getting buffed about 3%. And Shadow Blades, oh my god, it's going to deal 50% additional damage as Shadow up from 30. Shadow Blades getting a huge Subtlety also getting buffed here. Massive amount. Wound Poison just in general, little minor buff. And then Thistletea was added to be reset on encounter. We're seeing buffs to Slaughter Poison. Curious, what is Slaughter Poison? Coats your weapons with a lethal poison that lasts for 5 minutes. Each strike has a 30% chance to poison the enemy. For shadow damage, also, if you want to build the shadow build of Subtlety Rogue, they're trying to make that a little bit more competitively viable. So big changes here for Rogue. Good day for Rogues. Now we're moving on to Death Knight. It seems like you're getting an overall kind of nerf by 1%. Again, numbers like that, I don't really even know what to say, like how big of a deal that's going to be. This sudden doom change, I'm going to need somebody that plays Death Knight to 100% this, but it looks like they've added haste into procs per minute. So I don't know what that means. If this means you're getting more Death Coil procs from sudden doom or less, because they reduced this to 2.5 procs per minute from 2.8, but they included haste. So I don't know if this is going to be insane. You're just going to be popping off with death coils and epidemics all the time. Your bursting swords got a little nerf here, about 5%. Clawing shadows got a buff, though, by about 5%. Epidemic getting a small nerf, very small. And then Harbinger of Doom. Sudden Doom triggers 30% more often and can accumulate 2 charges. See, this is what I'm thinking. Like, they're trying to make Sudden Doom more of a possibility for you as Unholy, and like have a death coil option of a build with these changes. Unholy Pact, your Dark Transformation is getting nerfed a little bit, and this was a massive ability, at least in PvP, and I would imagine that it is in PvE. So getting this nerfed even by a small amount might be a big deal, but again, just very small minor changes for Death Knight. Seems like they're just trying to encourage different build options. Reanimated Shambler, again, look at this, like 2%, not really a big deal, it seems like. Frostbolt from Magus of the Dead getting buffed, as well as Shadowbolt getting nerfed. So just trying to equalize the pets. Rage Fire for Demon Hunters getting nerfed again, down from 40% down to 35% of damage dealt by up to 3 critical strikes is gathered as Rage Fire. This is kind of like the Omega Immolation Aura burst that you could build up over time. I can imagine that being possibly good in PvE, although I've seen a lot of Demon Hunters edging towards the I-Beam build. And then for Vengeance, Sigil of Flame is getting like a 11% buff, trying to get you a little bit more damage on Vengeance. And finally, we got some more healer updates. It feels like we haven't really been able to talk about healers a lot, but for Resto Druid specifically, lots of nerfs is what it looks like, but with one change that could have massive buffs in PvE and PvP when I looked at it. So Cultivation is getting a 10% nerf. That's a huge blow, especially in PvP for this being a possible build. Embrace the Dream, which has to do with wild growth, having a 50% chance to momentarily shift your mind into the Emerald Dream, instantly healing all allies affected by rejuvenation. This is a more big deal in Raid, where you actually are going to use wild growth, unlike Arena. So like all this area of effect focused healing got nerfed pretty heavily. Innervate talent, interestingly enough, if you cast it on an ally, is also going to benefit you 100% effectiveness. So you'll be able to innervate 2 healers effectively as a druid, possibly trying to encourage more options for bringing druids into raid encounters. I feel like druid, at least throughout Shadowlands, if my memory is not serving me wrong, was kind of like falling off at least as a raid healer. So trying to give like a unique reason to bring them in. Reginess for rejuvenation, healing is increased by up to 10%. Tranquility is increased up by 20%. This is getting nerfed down to 15, 30. So just some nerfs overall. Soul of the Forest is also getting nerfed. So your next regrowth and rejuve is only 150%, and your wild growth is only 50%. So those big lay on hands regrowths getting nerfed by 50%. Now, 50% is a big number, and this is going to be a big deal in PvE, but in PvP, I'm wondering if the regrowth is still going to heal the target to full health. And then also, they buffed Verdant Infusion. And it's likely because this is a single target focused heal, which is not just generally not as valuable in raid unless keeping the Cenarian Ward on a tank is something that's necessary. They're buffing it by 2 seconds. And if you'll remember from PvP, they've got a PvP multiplier here on it. So I don't know if that's going to 100% counteract it because it's going from 0.8 to 0.66. I'm assuming they've got to be adding a PvP multiplier to this because this would allow you to indefinitely keep Cenarian Ward on a target, which is way too powerful in PvP. So if this PvP modifier down here does that and cancels it out, great. If it doesn't, then this will be really strong. We talked about Innervate. Now for Holy Paladin, we're going to start to see Imperial Ward, Lay on Hands, grant the target 30% increased armor for 1 minute. So trying to get Lay on Hands as a possible build. Also, Lay on Hands is usable in PvP now. So by getting this, you could also buff the armor of your target for a minute, depending on a matchup or something. Holy Shock is also getting a minor nerf. Although it seems like if you're using it for damage, it's a bigger nerf than if you're using it for healing. I'm sorry, Shockadins. Also, Judgment of the Light, causing your next 25 successful attacks to heal the attacker for only 3.5 down from 7. It's things like this where Judgment of the Light gets more and more value the more targets there are that can immediately consume it. But in PvP, like this is already an unappealing talent. Now it's even more unappealing. Light of Dawn, again, AoE focused healing, getting a minor nerf. Untempered Dedication, Light of the Martyr's damage and healing is increased by 10% each time it's cast, up from 8. This effect can stack up to 5 times and last for 15 seconds. So some slight healer adjustments, very minor overall. Seems like the biggest deal was Assassination Rogue buffs. Those could have massive implications moving into PvP. And I also saw something to do with their PvP multipliers on Iron Wire, which increases a Garrote Silence by 6 seconds. It used to be a half multiplier. Now it's only a 1 multiplier. So like, what does that mean? Does this undo? Are we getting Garrote Silence for 6 seconds while getting blasted by these massive buffs from Assassination Rogues? We're going to have to wait and see. But this weekend's raid testing is going to be very interesting, very entertaining. Curious to see where all the specs land after this weekend in terms of competitive play. And I'm sure there'll be more changes as well as PvP-focused changes now as we're moving past this phase for raid testing. So again, if you want to make sure you're staying up to date with everything, make sure you hit the subscribe button. But other than that, thank you once again for watching the video. You can check me out on twitch.tv/Supatease as I'm streaming there every day. A little bit more heavily focused on Wrath of the Lich King at the moment, but as Dragonflight starts to ramp up more and more, I'm also going to be getting more and more into it as well. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.